I've been sitting with this episode for a while now, trying to figure out what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. As I begin this episode, I want to acknowledge that this marks a transition, not an ending exactly, but a moment to step back and understand what this first season has been trying to show me. When I started Shadow to Soul, I thought I knew what I wanted this podcast to be. I thought it was about healing, regression therapy, transformation, stories, the subconscious mind, the things we carry that we don't fully understand. And while all of that is true, as I went from story to story, recounting my notes and putting them into a narrative where I could understand and I could explain cause and effect, something else started revealing itself under every story. And episode after episode, client after client, story after story, the same underlying wounds kept coming up. Feeling unloved, feeling unworthy, abandonment, rejection, betrayal, feeling unseen, feeling unsafe, self-abandonment, and the lack of self-love. And eventually I had to ask myself, why do all these roads lead back to the same place? And the answer, without exception, was childhood. Sometimes it was obvious, dramatic trauma. Other times it was subtle emotional experiences. Sometimes it was the quiet environments that shaped us before we had the language to express what we were feeling. The ways we learned to protect ourselves emotionally, the beliefs we developed about ourselves, about love, safety, security, about worth, about connection, about conflict. And what really stood out to me was this: most people are not consciously living from the present moment. They're living from patterns formed long before they even understood what those patterns were. And the deeper realization was that it's not about blaming parents. Because when we look back, most parents are also carrying things from their own childhood and their parents before them and generations before that. Many of our parents were raised in environments where emotional expression wasn't safe, where discipline was harsh, where survival mattered more than emotional awareness, where children were seen but not emotionally understood. And just because something was normalized doesn't mean it wasn't painful. A child's nervous system doesn't understand cultural context. It only understands, do I feel safe? Do I feel loved? Do I feel seen? Is it safe to be myself? Am I allowed to be myself? Will I still be loved if I disappoint someone? Is love conditional? Do emotions matter? And I think so many adults are still unknowingly living from the answers they formed to these questions a long time ago. The more I reflected on the season, the more I realized that every story was pointing to awareness. Awareness of patterns, awareness of emotional inheritance, awareness of what we unconsciously pass down, awareness of how deeply our childhood experiences shape the adults we become. And that realization changed me because somewhere along the way, this podcast stopped being just about healing stories. It became about understanding humanity a little deeper, understanding why we love the way we do, why we fear the things we fear, why we repeat patterns, why relationships become painful, why people disconnect from themselves, why some people struggle to feel worthy of love, worthy of rest, worthy of success, worthy of belonging. And maybe most importantly, how awareness creates the possibility of change, true, lasting change. Because once we become conscious of a pattern, we create the opportunity to choose something different moving forward. And I think that's where this podcast is beginning to evolve. I don't think I want to only tell stories anymore. Not because the stories aren't important, they are, but because the stories themselves reveal something bigger. So I'm taking a pause between season 1 and season 2. This pause feels intentional, necessary, aligned with where this podcast is naturally leading me. I feel this podcast and its purpose is becoming clearer to me now more than it has ever done before. Before I jump into season 2, I want to take some time to reflect and to truly understand where this next chapter wants to go. I believe that in the next chapter, having possibly deeper conversations about childhood, emotional patterns, relationships, parenting, attachment, identity, human behavior, and how we can begin creating healthier emotional environments for ourselves and for future generations, from a place of awareness, from a place of compassion and deeper understanding. Because I truly believe that people are doing the best that they can with the awareness that they have. And sometimes all it takes is one conversation, one moment of reflection, one new perspective to interrupt a cycle that may have existed in a family for generations. If you've listened to this podcast, supported it, shared it, reflected with me, or allowed these conversations into your life, thank you. This season changed me more than I expected it to. Maybe that's the point. Sometimes we begin something thinking that we're teaching, only to realize we're being taught. So this isn't goodbye, it's simply the end of a chapter. And I'll see you in season 2.